Today, we're going to be going over one change I'd make to every single hero in Marvel Rivals that help them be either more balanced, more fun, or more interesting. I do want to clarify that this video is purely subjective and not meant to be taken super seriously, but I also want to go over the way it's going to be structured and how it's going to work. These changes will be considered in a vacuum, meaning what happens to one hero will not affect what happens to another one, and these can vary from team-ups to abilities. We will also be joined by two special guests today who are both widely considered to be the best at their respective heroes, who will be talking about their heroes change. Lastly, I will make sure to put timestamps for every single one of these in the description, but if you want to stick around for the whole thing, we will be starting off with Angela and Vanguards and ending with Ultron and Strategists. With that being said, join the Discord. Hope you enjoy. Starting off with Angela, the one change I would make would be to increase the damage on her axes. The main reason behind this is because there's not really much of an incentive to go into her grounded form and to help her get kills in her ultimate. Her ultimate at times can just feel like a worse version of Groot ult or Agamotto, so increasing the damage on her axes can help her feel more independent during her ult and not rely on her team as much. This would also give her more of a reason to brawl, as the overshield she provides to herself and to her teammates is actually pretty good, but not something you ever really see all that often. Moving on to everybody's favorite Boy Scout, I would lower his shield regen speed across the board. Now technically this is two changes, but you can't really do one without doing the other, and it's my video, my rules, so I don't know, deal with it. Now I only am kind of kidding, because his shield does have two different regens that work in different ways, but they are on the same ability and they work very similar. One of these is a 4-second cooldown that is applied once a shield is put away, and the other one is a 5-second cooldown that is for when a shield is broken. Although I think Cap is pretty decent, he is overshadowed by other heroes that serve a similar role, as well as having a lot of his counters being pretty strong right now, so I think helping lowering his downtime would help combat that. Now, as someone who likes to dabble in Doctor Strange, I can tell you right now that besides getting Emme grabbed from another zip code and Invisible Woman not accepting where my hug at, the most frustrating thing is when you build up dark magic too quickly and you get antied. That's why I think the amount of dark magic you build up per whip hit should be lowered. Lowering it from 10 to 7 wouldn't be all that bad in my opinion, and seeing how oppressive he can already be with how much damage output he has, sacrificing a little bit of possible AoE for more sustained damage is a fair trade-off in my opinion. Moving on to Emma Frost, I would change the amount of damage that her Psychic Spear does. The way that this thing works right now is that you pull somebody's soul out, shoot into it until it breaks, and then they lose 25% of their maximum HP. Except no, because shooting into the crystal also does damage to you, and because it's 25% of your HP, when it breaks, you lose 50% of your maximum HP bar. Wait, it gets even better, because if you shoot into them and the crystal, they can now lose a whopping 75% of their maximum HP. But Womps, you can just move out of it. Who greenlit this? My proposed change would just be lower the conversion rate of damage that this crystal takes, meaning if it takes 100, you still only take 50. It would still be a minimum of 37.5% of your HP, but that's a lot more reasonable than half. Okay, we good? We still here? Alright, my proposed change to Groot would be allowing his primary to pierce through enemies. Now admittedly, this would probably be broken on its own and would need other factors like lowering its base damage, and every enemy pierced would lower the damage even more, but that's neither here nor there, and let's just focus on the topic at hand. I'm not gonna lie to you, this change doesn't really have a whole lot of merit behind it. He did it in the movies a couple of times, and I thought it would be cool to have it in game, and that's about it. I wish I was lying. Moving on to Hulk, I'm sorry, but I'm making his jump take longer to charge. Hulk is one of the few heroes in this game that I genuinely hate because he doesn't die. And listen, I'm all for characters with a high skill ceiling until that skill ceiling becomes me. I am talking out of an insane amount of bias right now, so feel free to disagree with me in the comments and boost my engagement. Magneto is one of those heroes that was so hard for me to find a change for because he's so balanced, he's good. But at the end of the day, I settled for bringing back the Wanda team up. Now, I know this technically counts as a change for Wanda, but like I said, these are all considered in a vacuum, so it won't count towards hers later this video. But even then, she could use the team up bonus. Either way, this was a very fun team up. It was very strong on Magneto's end, and I just miss having it in the game. Peni was another one of those heroes that was really hard for me to change, not because I think she's well constructed, but because how do you buff her without making her a low elo stomper, and you can't nerf her because she's not all that great to begin with. In the end, I settled by changing the way that her team up works by getting rid of the extra nest and giving her an auto turret that's kind of similar to a Namor squid on damage. Now, I understand playing against a Peni can feel like a mini game half the time anyway, and giving her a turret wouldn't really help with that, but I would much rather have a pea shooter shooting at me, giving my healers ult charge, than playing a scavenger hunt trying to find her other nest. As for the team up itself, you could keep her with Rocket, you could move her to Iron Man. I don't really think it matters all that much, to be honest with you. So here's the thing, Benjamin J. Grimm is bad. He's a pure melee character that doesn't do a whole lot of damage and has no shield in a game full of poke. And although I think it would take more than one thing to make him good, I would still like to see him do more damage with his normal punches. There is almost no reason to use his normal attack when his haymaker hits everything in front of you and gives you overshield. Increasing each punch's damage by 10, so it's 100 total instead of 80 total, would be a step in the right direction, allowing him to 3-shot every single support and almost every single DPS. My one change for Thor would be something I thought already existed in the game, and that'd be giving him overshield for every single enemy hit with his hammer throw. 20 to 30 per enemy hit would honestly be pretty good when it comes to giving him survivability and more uptime without giving him another shield or bubble, because that's the last thing this game needs. Rounding the Vanguards off with Venom, I would lower his base HP from 650 to 600. Venom is very strong right now and has 3 good ways to just not die, so I don't think 50 less HP would actually impact him all that much, but it would make him easier to handle in most cases. Now that we've finished up with all the Vanguards, it's time to move on to the Duelists, and the first Duelist up is everybody's favorite house cat, Black Panther. I would move him from Gamma to the Captain America Bucky team up. This would actually be so strong because unlike Bucky, Cap and Panther have really good synergy together. You're also giving him access to a better version of his Magik team up because he can actually choose where he wants to go, and you're giving both yourself and your teammate overshield. You and Cap would also be able to recreate the Wakanda Infinity War scene and just nuke any poor innocent support out of the game. Moving on to everybody's second favorite redhead, we have Black Widow. This is a character that's very hard to do anything to without making her broken, so we're going to completely ignore her base kit and change her ultimate. We're going to make it so that her ultimate one-shots 250 HP targets if hit directly. Moving on to Blade, the change I would make for him would be to increase his anti-heal from 40% to 50%. Anti-heal is by no means as strong as I thought it was going to be, mainly because of the amount of healing in this game, but also the way that they handled it with the Hela and Namor team up and Venom, and then there's Blade, who is a hero on the roster to say the least. The truth is, Blade's real identity isn't his lifesteal or his anti-heal, it's the fact that he has no real identity. He's both a poke and brawl character, but instead of being good at one and okay at the other, he's just kind of meh at both. And although I don't think increasing his anti-heal will fix this part of him, I do think it'll give him a little bit more substance and help him find a niche on teams. Moving on to Mike Ross, I would change the maximum ping range for a Sonic Pursuit from 40 meters to 30. The fact that you can ping somebody from that far away is already insane, but the fact that you can also do it through walls feels excessive and it needs to be lowered. Moving on to Hawkeye, I say that they lower the cooldown of his hypersonic arrow from 12 seconds to 10 seconds. Hawkeye hates playing into shields, and the 3 main shield tanks are all very popular right now, and so by lowering the cooldown from 12 seconds to 10, it gives him a means of dealing with them without him being able to spam it. Revert her bird. It's that simple, it really is.
The biggest thing I would change about Human Torch is his left click. The reason why his left click is so bad is because it got nerfed, and the way you can't do the melee tech means that you do less damage over time, and his neutral is horrible. His whole entire kit also revolves around his other abilities other than his left click, because his left click is one of the hardest things to hit in the whole entire game, and it does less damage because again, it got nerfed. So many things about his left click needs to change. In my opinion, I would just make it do a little bit more damage and a little bit more forgiving on how hard it is or easy it is to hit the shot.
Moving on to Iron Fist, I would lower his maximum overhealth from 175 to 150. I actually think Iron Fist is already in a pretty good spot right now. I'm just a human being with brain cells and think Stall Fist is stupid. As for Iron Man, his change isn't actually as much of a change as it is just me catching Nettie's lacking. On the website, it says that Armor Overdrive gives 100 overhealth when it actually only gives 50, so we're just going to make it to where it gives you the number that it says it does.
Alright, so what would I change about Magik? When Womps first asked me this question, I was extremely confused on what to say because Magik is in a very good spot right now. She is very balanced. But one thing comes to mind, and it's the speed of her portals. I would increase the speed of Magik's stepping discs, because as it is, Magik's portals are extremely slow and very, very easy to read. Now I understand that it's a fundamental weakness for the character, but as you get to higher elos, people are able to burst Magik out of her stepping discs way easier. And I think just increasing the speed, even if it's by a little bit, would just make her way easier to brawl with. If that change can't happen, I would like an extra effect with her projectile, maybe a slow similar to Bucky's orb, so then she becomes slightly better at diving. But yeah, I wouldn't have any massive changes to Magik, just little small quality of life ones to make her just a little bit better because she's already, the GOAT, and she's just so like amazing and strong and just like perfect.
Going on to Mr. Fantastic, I would make it so that the projectile he shoots out of his reflective rubber mode stun for 1 second if it hits somebody. I know he lacks reliable single target damage, but giving him that would just make him a tank, and I feel like this could help him find a utility slot on certain team comps. As for Moon Knight, I would lower his grapple cooldown from 15 to 12 seconds. Moon Knight is a hero that needs to roam and off angle to get value in a lot of situations, so by giving him access to his mobility quicker so he can reposition, it would help him out a lot. Next up is everybody's favorite team up merchant. Now when it comes to Namor, I will truly be holding him in a vacuum, as I will not be taking into consideration any team up that he has right now or might have in the future. Namor on his own is pretty underwhelming. His damage output is okay, but he still blows up in a lot of situations because of the lack of pressure he's able to put out without a team up. That's why I think his Wrath of the Seven Seas should be able to headshot. And this isn't as broken as you think it would be because of the way it deals damage, so it would only cap out at 140, which is still 10 less than a headshot from his normal primary. Moving on to Phoenix, I would make it so that her health no longer resets after using her ultimate. There is no reason she should have a get out of jail free card that also nukes the field of every summons, shield, and bonus health that is also one of the easiest ultimates to get in the game. Now for Psylocke, I would just increase her ultimate charge from 2800 to 3100. This would put it at the same cost as ultimates like Agamotto, Phoenix, and Namor, and I do believe she deserves to keep a strong ultimate, just make it take a little bit longer to charge. Scarlett Witch was another one of these that was really hard because what do you do without making her a nightmare for low elo players, but in the end I decided to lower her Mystic Projection recharge speed from 10 seconds to 8 seconds. I know this admittedly isn't all that big of a change, but like I said earlier, what do you do without making her a low elo stomper? Moving on to Spider-Man, I decided to make him displacement immune in his ultimate. I know this isn't as good as CC immunity because that would be broken, but it also helps him play into Invis a little bit easier, who's just going to patty cake with their other support and live through his ultimate anyway. Now as for Squirrel Girl, we're going to be changing the way that her damage works on her primary. This will allow her to do more total damage while also removing some of the frustration of her just shooting into nothing and still getting random kills. Moving on to Star-Lord, we're going to be increasing his Blaster Barrage cooldown from 8 seconds to 12 seconds. Now I know this seems like a big change, but it's not like it's an ability he's always using off cooldown, and when you look at the amount of ult charge this not only hands him on a silver platter, but also spoon feeds to him, I really couldn't care less. Fun fact, Storm used to actually be my main in the beta, and although I don't really play her all that much anymore, I still think she's pretty fun. And one thing I've always wondered since then is why doesn't her Wind Goddess boost have another effect like how her Thunder one has lightning strikes? Now I know it slows enemies inside of its radius, but it's not like speed control is super valuable in this game anyway. That's why I propose that upon activation, it knocks back enemies inside of its radius. Moving on to Punisher, I think it'd be really cool if they made it so that his smoke screen lasted 2-3 seconds before it started to go away. Blocking off your enemy's LOS is already one thing, but it would also pair very well with his passive as you'd be able to see outlined enemies and would make for some really interesting gameplay. Bucky is somebody that has never had to struggle a day in his life when it comes to this game, and one thing isn't going to change that, but I do think that they should remove the Earthbound on his uppercut. There is no reason all three of his main abilities are able to grant some form of CC, and not to mention he was in a really good spot before this change anyway. And as PickNRoll likes to say, nerf Bucky till it's backwards. Lastly, rounding off all the duelists, we have Wolverine, and I propose that they lower his ult charge from 3400 to 3100. I know this seems kinda scary, but every Vanguard in the game has some way to deal with him along with other popular heroes that just stop him from playing the game. And when you realize his ultimate is more of a way for him to secure kills instead of a flat out delete button, I don't think it's all that game breaking of a change. Kicking off the strategist, we have Adam Warlock, and I would get rid of the extended cooldown on his Soul Bond. What I mean by this is that if Soul Bond is on cooldown and Adam Warlock respawns, not counting his cocoon, the cooldown remains the same, while with most other abilities it would have just gotten reset. This change made sense at the time, however long ago that was, but we've reached the point in the game where Adam is kind of locked behind triple support, and although I don't think this would help him get out of that handcuff, I think it would make him a little bit more fluid in two support comps. Moving on to Cloak and Dagger, I would increase the cooldown of her bubble from 12 seconds to 15 seconds. Not only is this already one of the strongest healing abilities in the game because your entire team can just stand in it and then you get ult charge incredibly fast, but it's technically not even a 12-second cooldown because the cooldown starts resetting after the bubble is thrown, not when it goes away, meaning there's only a 6-second downtime in between each bubble, and by increasing the cooldown to 15 seconds, it would make it 9. As for Invis, I think she can be one of the most frustrating supports to play against, and I would increase the cooldown of her push and pull from 8 seconds to 10 seconds. Having this good of a zoning ability that can also pull enemies back into your team on an 8-second cooldown is very strong, and 10 seconds will allow it to still remain good while also being a little bit more balanced. It's time for everybody's favorite or least favorite little land shark, and I would lower Jeff's damage on his spray from 70 per second to 50 per second. I know his 70 DPS might not seem all that high, but look at it like this. If Jeff is healing one person and damaging another, he is impacting a total of 200 health per second, with that only going up in a team fight. By lowering his damage a little bit, I don't think making him less oppressive is the right term, but that's the one I'm going to use. use, and you also make him farm ult a little bit slower. Moving on to Loki, I would rework the way that his primary attack works, specifically its healing, by lowering its AoE heals from 40 to 30, but making it so direct hits heal for 20 to 25. Now this would increase his skill ceiling by a fair bit, and his AoE heals would become kind of bad. Direct hits from all 3 clones would out heal Luna Snow ult. Moving on to Luna Snow, I would lower the damage on her clap from 50 to 40. Not only does it pierce through teammates and enemies, but it also has a pretty forgiving hitbox, and I cannot count the amount of times I have gotten random kills with this or gotten killed randomly by it. Mantis is pretty strong right now, and I don't think she really needs a nerf, but God forbid me give her a buff, so in the end I did lower her sleep duration from 3.5 seconds to 3. This would be impactful in some cases, but I don't think it would make or break her, and it's definitely I had to make a change for the sake of the video than anything else. Moving on to Rocket, I would change his dash range from 8 meters to 10 meters like how it used to be. Rocket definitely is good right now, but I'm by no means as high on him as a lot of other people are, but this would still be a good change without breaking him. Finishing off the strategist as well as all the heroes, we have Ultron, and I would increase his ult charge from 3700 to 4000. If he wasn't dead in double support before, he definitely is now, but he still held a strong spot in triple, and if there's one thing triple support hates, it's expensive ultimates. Is this a lazy change? Yes, but it's still nowhere near as lazy as Ultron's character design, so we're just gonna ignore it. And that wraps everyone up. Thank you so much to Mikesaboveu and PickNRoll for helping me out with this. Be sure to go check them out in the description down below, but also what changes would you guys have done? I'm really curious to see what the community has to say about something like this. But with that being said, thanks for watching, love you guys.